each of them out loud.
Okay, just read them?
Just read them.
Okay. So the first one is, you are not doing enough.
Your mental health is not important. Just take care of everyone else.
You are a broken person that barely anyone can stand.
You'll never be anyone but just a mom.
You're too weak and emotional.
You don't give your children enough time and love.
Your weight embarrasses your kids, and you should have better style.
No one will want you if you ever have to date again with a body like that.
You were too hard on Flynn last night. You're going to scar her. She's just a kid.
Hi.
Hello.
I'm Rebecca.
I'm
nice
Nikki. Nice to meet you.
I'm Hannah.
I'm Kira. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
You could read out loud one of your cards to Karen.
Okay. Mine says, you should have done more.
You can't be great at work or at home. You'll never be 100% at either. You'll always be mediocre.
My body is so ugly now that I've had a baby.
Oh, wow.
This is gonna make me cry. Is that what you're trying to do?
Everybody will be better off without you.
Sometimes I think that too, honestly. Sometimes I think I could just get in my car and leave and it would just be so much better.
Yes.
They could just make it work without me.
How did that feel, reading your negative thoughts to another person?
I feel like it's one thing to write them down for yourself and to accept them yourself, but to have somebody else hear them is totally different.
Vulnerable, and like I want to say these things out loud to someone.
Yeah.
So that you can be like, you're crazy. And then be like, no, that's totally legit.
You know, when you hear someone else talking about all the things that they do, you know, we shouldn't be so hard on ourselves.
You're perfect. Perfect, just like you are.
Now, what would you like to do with those cards in your hand?
Can I just rip them up now?
Should we rip them up?
Can I get rid of them forever?
Mine are really thick.
Let the universe have them.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
All right. It's okay to cry. I still cry every time I see that video. So I'm on a mission to help change the stories that we tell ourselves as women and mothers. And if you're not a mother, it doesn't matter. We're going to be talking about the human condition of self-doubt. And according to my research, the women in particular in this room are no different than the women that I just showed you on that video. Want to see if I'm right? I would like for you to think of the last terrible thing that you said to yourself. And if you're like anybody that comes to my workshops, I guarantee you don't have to go back to yesterday. There's something that you said to yourself today that was cruel and ugly and mean and terrible. And I want you to think about what it is. And now, I want you to turn to someone around you and say that shit out loud. I'm serious. Oh, wait. Let's bring it back together. Let's bring it back together. We could stay here all day. just doing this. We wouldn't even make it to any other session. So I recently was giving this talk, and it was in a room with men and women, and on the front row happened to be a husband and wife that were sitting together. And when I said, you know, turn to the person next to you, the wife's like, oh, shit. And so she's like thinking 5 things that she said to herself this morning that are so ugly and cruel that she's like, I can't tell my husband that this is how I feel about myself. So she stalls and she says, you go first. And he goes, I mean, I cannot think of the last terrible thing I said. I'm trying. And she was like, what? So she goes on Instagram, and I really believe this. She said, ladies, all caps, this is why men rule the world. Can you imagine who you would be and what you could accomplish if you could not recall the last terrible thing that you said to yourself? We would be superheroes if we weren't hating on ourselves all day, every day. Every time I hear the things that women say to themselves, I'm convinced all over again that as mothers, we are not at war with other mothers, we are at war with ourselves. So stop talking about it being working versus stay at home, breastfeeding versus bottle feeding. It doesn't matter. This is where the war is that nobody's actually talking about. And I know all about this war because for 20 years of my life, I lived with what I refer to as a dragon of self-doubt. This beast inside of me that would inhale everything I did wrong, nothing I did right, and blow it back in my face. From age 15 to 35. It was an exhausting existence. Most of that existence, I was in the advertising industry for 15 years, which can fuel that dragon quite ferociously, but I am living proof that dragons of self-doubt can be slayed. I am not a magician. I did not wave a magic wand. I did the hard work and the homework, and I learned to love myself from the inside so that I no longer require it from the outside, and my life has dramatically improved. So you can do this, and we're going to start slaying today, but it's very important that you start to write down and say out loud the way that you speak to yourself, because dragons of self-doubt thrive in darkness and silence and avoidance. And you probably just saw that the person around you has some pretty crappy things that they say about themselves too. So let's stop wearing masks and pretending like we're perfect. So what I'm going to do is share 3 insights that I've learned from mothers all around the world. Many of them I came up with when I was a group planning director at the Martin Agency for many, many years. So when I launched the Mom Complex, we threw what we call opinion parties in 17 countries around the world. So I'm a researcher by trade, and I think focus groups are crap. If you take 8 strange moms who don't know each other and you put them in a lab rat-like focus group facility in Topeka, Kansas, and ask them to be honest with you, they're just going to lie. Because guess what? Moms want to look like good moms in front of other moms. So they're going to tell you they eat broccoli 3 meals a day, their kids always recycle, their husband's really helpful. It's all lies. So we threw opinion parties in 17 countries, and we wanted to uncover the one emotion that all moms have in common. And what the research revealed was that that emotion is self-doubt. Not feeling good enough, thin enough, nice enough, tough enough, mom enough, group planning director enough, creative director enough, whatever. And this changed my life. It happened to be while we were pitching the Johnson & Johnson business. That's why we did this research, because we wanted to learn about moms. And I was like, oh, we learned something real big. So this changed my life because I thought, wait a second, I'm so full of doubt. All of these mothers all around the world are filled with doubt. Why don't we just talk about the damn doubt? Why are we wearing masks and parading around like we're perfect when we're all really, really broken? Went further into the research in the U.S. and found that 9 out of 10 mothers in this country report living with self-doubt on a daily basis. I have met that 10th woman. She does exist, and we should love her instead of hate on her, and we can learn from her, and we can also learn from the men in our life who are less likely to suffer from this affliction. When it comes to women, we also found out that 75% of the time a woman's self-doubt is born during or before adolescence. So becoming a mother did not make you start doubting yourself. You've been doubting yourself since you were a teenager, since somebody told you or showed you or said to you that you weren't good enough, and you've been carrying it around. And then it gets exacerbated when we become a mother or a father because we simply have 150 new reasons every day to think that we suck. So it was already there, this dragon was there, and then motherhood just kind of sets it ablaze. The second insight that we uncovered globally is what I call the perfect mom paradox, and here's the way it works. When you first become a mother, your expectations are extraordinarily high. I'm going to make all my own baby food, cloth diapers only. I'm going to catch them before they ever fall. Luckily, over time, our expectations come down, and most of us would say, all right, if my kids are alive at the end of the day, I'm putting that in the win column. At the same time, obviously, you have no experience when you become a mother. The good news is you do move to the right-hand side of this chart where your experience outweighs your expectations, but the side on the left is where the pain exists. How many of you have ever read anything from Eckhart Tolle? Yes, okay. Usually it's like one person. Okay, so Eckhart Tolle would tell you, spiritual guru, that the left-hand side of this chart is technically the definition of human suffering. When the expectations that you have for your life exceed your ability to achieve those expectations, you suffer. And guess what? The perfect mom paradox comes back over and over and over again every time you are forced to deal with the situation that you've never had to deal with before. So you can get really good at being a mom to 2 young kids, and you can put them in a shopping cart at Target and get out without crying yourself, and you're like, okay, I can do this. Then you have teenagers. How many of you have or ever have had a teenager? And what does having a 2-year-old teach you about having a 14-year-old? Nothing. They have nothing in common at all. But here's what happens is mothers will say, come on, Karen, you've been a mom for 14 years. Why can't you get your act together? And to that, Karen, I would say, yes, you've been a mother for 14 years, but you've been the mother to a 14-year-old for a matter of days. So why do we think that we should automatically be good at something that we have never, ever, ever done before? So give yourself some grace when you're going through new transitions, new things in your life. The next insight that my research revealed is the difference between struggling and suffering. Struggling is brought on by the external circumstances in your life. Making dinner for your family, trying to get a promotion, trying to go to the gym, making time for this conference, whatever it is. But we dip down into suffering when we yell at ourselves for not handling those struggles better, or we believe that we are the only ones that have those struggles. So you tell yourself, you know, gosh, so-and-so's kids, they eat all kinds of green vegetables, and yours just eat green Jolly Ranchers, and you're a poor excuse for a mother. And you just all goes back, and it makes the struggling harder. And with my book, Slay Like a Mother, I'm trying to convince women all around the world, the goal is to struggle. If you are struggling in life, you win. Welcome to the human existence. You're never going to not struggle. I've researched this all the time. Today's going to be a struggle. Tomorrow's going to be a struggle. But you can do it without suffering. And while this might sound overwhelming, it's meant to be empowering. You are the cause of your own suffering. And nobody can make you feel like crap about yourself without your permission. So if you cause it, you actually can uncause it. And now I have learned to uncause it finally after years of therapy, years of reading dozens of self-help books, drinking lots of red wine, and watching lots of Oprah reruns, which is how I know about Eckhart Tolle. But, so like I said, it can be done. And so I want to get out of the way. I do workshops like this a lot of different places. Went to India earlier this year, presented to women from 62 countries, and I hear the same 2 excuses every time of why you don't take time for yourself, spend time on yourself, learn to love yourself. The first excuse is that I don't have time. My schedule's full, I'm really busy, my partner needs me, my boss needs me, etc. So to that, I would ask you to look at this slide, which is filled with friends and family members who I love dearly. And the only thing that at least one person in every picture has in common with each other is that they are dead, including my cues. So when you say, I don't have time to work on myself, to heal myself, to love myself, it's not true. If you woke up this morning and you showed up at this session, you do have time to work on yourself. So I invite you to change the dialogue and not say, I don't have time for myself. Say the words, I'm not making time for myself. Because you do get to choose. The second excuse is that it's selfish. Everybody else needs me. If I spend time on myself, heaven forbids if I go get a pedicure, the world's going to stop spinning, and we think it's selfish. But I'll share with you this chart that I share in my book where if the way that you speak to yourself, the nutrients that are flowing through your blood sound like, I suck at this, I'm never good enough, I'm a terrible person, you will remain very weak and very hollow, as I was for 2 decades. However, if you can shift to the right and you can say things to yourself like, I'm not perfect and it's okay, or I'm doing the best I can, you will have so much more love to give away because you cannot give away what you do not have inside. If you can't dribble a basketball, you can't teach your children to play basketball. If you can't cook in any way other than using a microwave, you can't teach your family how to cook. If you don't love yourself, it's very hard to love other people. And if you ask anyone in my life, my husband, my parents, my children, my colleagues, they would tell you that I am a better boss, a better manager, a better mother, a better sister, daughter, wife, friend, because I took this time. So you do have time, and it's not selfish. So what's the end game? If you read Slay Like a Mother and you learn to slay this dragon of self-doubt, like where am I trying to get you to go? Very often, in order to gain perspective, I will interview older mothers, usually in their 80s and 90s, because there ain't nobody that's got perspective like an 85-year-old woman. And so I interviewed a mother recently, 85 years old, her name is Nancy, and I said, Nancy, what advice would you give younger women, younger moms who are stressed out, exhausted? What would you say? Here's Nancy's advice for you. Just put your head down, do your best, and forget about what everybody else thinks. I am convinced that if we are lucky enough to live to be 85, we will say what Nancy says. We will say the exact same thing. So I am on a mission to just help you get there faster. Don't wait till 85 to learn the lesson that you're going to learn. I learned it at 35. You can learn it at any age. Let's teach our daughters to learn it at 15 and much earlier. The final chapter of my book is called Raising Dragon Slayers, and it's how to raise your children, and especially your daughters, to know about this beast, learn about this beast, and ultimately slay it so it doesn't control her life for as long as it did mine. So let's slay together. I'm going to share a couple tips and tricks about how to find more work-life balance through this lens, and then we'll open it up to lots of questions. But I'm not going to make you uncomfortable anymore. The hard part's over. until you read the book. Okay, so I'm going to give you a couple things about learning to say no. And so when I was at the Martin Agency, I came back from my first maternity leave, and I had a mentor by the name of Brad Armstrong who was there. And he said to me, you know, Katherine, what do you want to protect? What time do you want to protect? You know, now that you're a new mom, you've come back to the agency, and I didn't know what to say. So I said, I want to eat dinner with my family, because I thought you eat dinner with babies, and you don't. And I was like, it just felt like the right thing to say. And so I said, you know, I'd love to be able to leave at, 6:30 every night and go home and have dinner with my children. And he said, okay, Katherine, I want you to think about your job as a teenage boy that's trying to make out with you. And I was like, I'm familiar. Carry on. And he said, your job's job is to take everything you will give it and still want more. That's your job's job. And your job is to draw your boundaries, a line in the sand of what you are and are not willing to do before the heat of the moment so that you don't cave. Because here's what happens. You say, I'm going to leave every night at 6:30, but you don't tell anybody. You just leave that critical information in your mind. And then somebody comes over to your desk and they're like, oh, Katherine, we have this conference call and it's on the West Coast and it doesn't start till 7 and we really need you on the call and it's not going to be the same without you. And you go, okay, I'll make out with you. and you just cave. You said you weren't going to make out with them and then you do. And so the point is, figure out your boundaries and start telling people. And men are so much better at this than women. So a dad who came to one of my workshops recently said, I asked for permission to say no in bulk. And I was like, tell me more. And he said, I go to my manager and I say, soccer's important to my son, therefore it's important to me. So for the next 8 weeks, I'd like to leave at 6 o'clock so I can be at every one of his matches. What's the boss say? Okay, get your job done. Dad gets permission for 8 weeks where mom's over there like, I'm gonna leave. I'm definitely gonna leave. I'm gonna leave. Oh God, everybody thinks I suck. I can't leave. I can't leave. I can't leave. And you miss 2 out of the 8 games because you feel like a schmuck and people really aren't thinking you suck and you think they're thinking that you suck and it's a silly situation. So figure out what's important to you and start saying out loud in bulk. The second thing you can do to have more balance in your life is to put yourself on your calendar. And when I tell women this, they're like, I know, but tomorrow my calendar's full. Yes, it is. But 6 weeks from now, your calendar is not full. It's not. Maybe a couple dumb status meetings and stuff like that are reoccurring. But it's not full. So fast forward 6 weeks. Did I say 6 months? 6 weeks. That's too far. 6 weeks. Go to 6 weeks from now and start to put reoccurring meetings, again in bulk, on your calendar. Maybe it's a Tuesday morning walk with your girlfriend. Maybe it's lunch with your partner every once in a while. Maybe it's getting drunk on a Thursday. It doesn't have to be healthy. It's what makes you happy. And when it's reoccurring meetings, then guess what? Every Tuesday you're built into your calendar, and every Thursday you're built into your calendar. And when the future becomes the present and 6 weeks have passed, your work-life balance is already built in a little bit. And then what I do on my calendar to this day is I color code all those meetings dark purple, and I call it my mojo time. And I do that with the color coding because old habits die hard. And if I don't look at my calendar in a given week and see enough purple, it means I'm falling back into my old ways. And my old ways might be your current ways, which mean that you believe, if you don't have enough time for yourself, you believe that other people deserve your time more than you do. That's what you believe. And so it's in that case, it's not that you have a hard time saying no to other people, it's that you have a hard time saying yes to yourself. And as soon as you love yourself, I say yes to myself all the time now. Where before I was like, oh, I'm worthless, I don't need my time, my boss needs my time, and this person. Now I'm like, nope. And then I just picture them like a teenage boy trying to make out with me. And it's so fun to say no. So you got to get to the root of the problem. And the root of the problem is you can't say yes to yourself. And here's what's going to happen. You're going to start doing this. You're going to start dipping your toe in the water. You're going to start saying no to other people. And you will realize what I realized, which was people don't care about you as much as you think they care about you. They don't. And people are like, can you meet at 1 o'clock to do this? And I say, no, we can meet at 2. And what do they say? Okay, fine. And the PTA fundraiser is still going to happen. The new business pitch is still going to happen. The world's still going to, I mean, go on maternity leave. Somebody does your job. They don't care. And then you come back. Like, it's all okay. So those are a couple tips on learning to say no. The second thing is to start taking off this mask that you're wearing. And I'll give you a quick litmus test to see if you're wearing a mask. You're wearing a mask if you answer questions twice, once in your mind and once out loud. So you get back from a beach vacation with 2 young kids. It's your first day back at work, and somebody from accounting is like, hey, how was your beach vacation? And in your mind, you're like, it sucked. There's sand everywhere. My mother-in-law's a jerk. I'm so tired. I need a vacation from the vacation. And then, but your mouth goes, it was awesome. Yeah, those walks on the beach, you know, lies. And so here's what I have to say about wearing a mask. Other people might not know that you're wearing a mask, but you know that you're wearing a mask. And every time you lie and say you are fine when you are not, you are telling your soul that the person that you're speaking to's opinion of you matters more than the truth and matters more than your truth. So the next time somebody asks you how you're doing, just try being honest. And again, the world will not end, you will not die, and you will start to get the help and the support that you need. So you're probably all very familiar with the fact that being a mother, it feels like a competitive sport. Like, here I'm doing this, and look at me, I'm doing this, and Instagram and Facebook. Well, it's also true when you start taking your mask off, and you'll say things like, I feel like a bad mother because I forgot to make my son's lunch for school today. And the mother next to you is going to go, you think that's bad? I forgot to pick my son up from school one day. And then the next mother's like, I had an affair. I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. But like it does, it gets there pretty quickly that none of us are perfect. And you will start to feel less like a loser when you let your mishaps out and then you hear that nobody's perfect and everybody's struggling. And the last tip I'll share is about setting more realistic expectations. And I used to think that my really, really high expectations were the cause of my success because I would raise the bar so high and I was always like a dog, like jump, jump, jump. But then I realized that they were actually the cause of my suffering. Because when you set the bar too high, and there is a difference between high expectations and expectations that are too high, when the bar is too high, you fall short every day at everything you attempt to do. And that feels terrible, to lay your head on the table, You're really tired if you're just like, lay your head on the pillow at night thinking that you're falling short at everything you're setting out to do. So back to the point about the perfect mom paradox, I want you to think about and even write down, what are 3 things in your life that are new to you right now? Maybe you're going through a divorce. Maybe you just got a promotion. Maybe you have breast cancer. New things to you. Those are the places that you need to give yourself some grace, and you need to level set your expectations, that you're not going to be perfect at it from the beginning. I'll give you an example. When I was writing Slay Like a Mother, it's my first book, never written a book before, and Old Habits Die Hard. By the time I got to like chapter 10 and I was writing it, I was like, come on, Katherine, like you should be faster at this, better at this by now. You're 10 chapters in. And I thought, nope, that's rude. And so I took out a Post-it note and I wrote down, I expect this to be hard. And I put it on my computer. And every single day that it was hard, I looked at the Post-it note and said, oh, that's right. It's supposed to be hard to write a freaking book. So I encourage you to use the Post-it note and use it in areas of your life that are new. Because anything that's new to you, you're a rookie. And rookies don't get things right the first time. And if you just expect that, then that goes back to the struggling without suffering. So, as was mentioned before we do Q&A, just a little bit about the book. We have hard copies of the book outside if you're interested in buying one. Happy to sign it for you. I also recorded the audio version of the book if you're into that scene. It's available on Audible, and it's my voice, so I can just read you your bedtime stories at night. Also available on ebook. And then outside in the hallway, we have a sign-up sheet for our newsletter. And every 2 weeks, we send out a list of slays, of things that women are really nailing and conquering so that you don't have to start everything from scratch. Because when we believe that we're the only people struggling, we try to start everything from scratch. We're like, clearly nobody's ever cared for aging parents. Clearly nobody's ever gotten divorced, and we have to do it from scratch. So an example of a newsletter might be, how to slay dinner time, how to slay saying no, how to slay drawing boundaries, and they're just really quick tips and tricks. I'll share one with you just to show you how simple it is. In my household, I always sense that there is a strong gravitational pull towards the mother's email address with kids' schools. My husband does not get the emails asking if he's coming to the Halloween party. He doesn't. I get them. So that pissed me off. And it was so much extra work for me to have to forward it, check with him, like all this stuff. And so we set up a generic email account that's basically our family name at gmail.com, and the schools and the sports and all those humans only get that email address. And then when we check it, we can delete things. So it's a way to kind of force the dividing and conquering so that that mental and cognitive load doesn't rest with the mother. Okay, we have about 10 more minutes to get really real and really raw and really honest. So who has a question? Yes. Leaving early sets a good example, not a bad example.
But that's my challenge, is that you would think that having your company would give you more permission, and I'm like my worst
enemy. Yeah. Okay, so great question. And the good news is you are in the environment that will allow for that because you're the boss, you're in charge, you can decide. Now you're the only one holding yourself back from doing that. So I would figure out the 2 things that are most important to you that would give you some of that mojo back, that time, that energy. And I think you have to say it out loud to your team. Hey, I've been working to the grind, I'm tired, and I would love on Tuesdays I'm gonna do this, and on Thursdays I'm gonna do this, and I just wanna tell you all so that you know, and I love you, and they're all gonna get up and hug you and love you, and they're gonna tell you to do it even more. And so just start doing it and say it out loud, and then that's when you've said it out loud, they're gonna hold you accountable. And they're going to say, what are you doing here, Lauren? It's Tuesday at 6. This is supposed to be your wine time, whatever it is. And so do that. And then, the other thing about like the notion that we're our own worst enemy, that's really, really frightening. And we say it all the time, and I used to say it all the time, but to think about what that is that our worst enemy in the world is ourselves. But we can kill it. We can get rid of, that enemy. So I would just plant the flag and start doing it. And to my point earlier, it's setting a bad example to work all the time. Because when I leave early and when I take time and I do fun things on business trip, not just work, it tells everybody on my team at my company that that's embraced and that they should do it. So think about it that way. You're welcome.
When you use the example of like honoring your truth and speaking about like that terrible beach day, there's sand everywhere, your mother-in-law, like in those situations, how do you reconcile how you like honoring your truth and honoring your real feelings with like trying to find the silver lining and like not losing that sense of optimism so that you just don't like find yourself drowning in negativity?
Sure, that's a good question. So I would say go with like 70% the truth and then sugarcoat it like 30%, it was hard, being on vacation. It's actually not a vacation, it's a relocation. You just pick up all your problems and take them to the beach. But the sunsets were beautiful. I mean, it doesn't have to be, and it also doesn't have to be complaining. I mean, you know, you can just say it was really hard, you know, and it doesn't have to be a spiral. But at a minimum, have both. Don't have it just be the goods, you know, the lies. Yes.
So I set the boundary for myself, and my team's been really supportive that I leave at 5 because I need to go do the thing. Yeah, you think that. But then I go at 5, I have my time with my kid, and then because I left at 5 and had my time with my kid, I feel like I now need to work until midnight to make up for it. So I don't know how to get around that, because now I actually think I'm working more than if I would have just stayed till 6.
Yeah, a lot of women feel that way. And first of all, I would stop. We announce that too much. You know, we say, oh, I'm leaving, but I'll be online later. You know, like, let's stop training people that that is okay, you know? And so I would say, kind of like going on maternity leave and other people do your job, sometimes if you don't get to all those emails, sometimes they get done. You know, and so one of the things I used to do when my kids were really young, I would leave my phone in the car for 90 minutes when I got home, so that the entry into my home was clean and pure, and I wasn't like, okay, I'm here. And make no mistake, at 90 minutes, I was like, you know, running to go get the phone. But not having it on the counter can reduce that temptation. And that's where I learned how many emails actually got answered and solved themselves in those 90 minutes versus me being, you know, in real time. What happened at 35? I was in the kitchen making dinner. I had been on vacation for 2 weeks over Christmas away from work. And so my husband said, what's wrong? You seem down. And I said, these last 2 weeks, I've been a good mom and a good wife. And now I got to go back to work and be a good mom, a good wife, and a good employee. And I'm not sure I can do it. How many of you have ever felt that way? Okay. And he said to me, and I quote, just be yourself, Katherine. What is so wrong with being you? And I did not say anything out loud, but a very loud and very clear voice in my head said, I don't like me. What's wrong with being you? I don't like me. And I was like, that's startling. and so that sparked my self-help journey, which was like, well, I've done a lot, I've accomplished a lot. I have the semblance of success in other people's eyes, but I wasn't happy. And so that I chose to get curious. Instead of shutting it down, I was like, why don't I like myself? And that's what started the work. And now I like myself. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Love it. Great. Okay, the question is, what advice do you give the little ones in our lives who already have, it's very evident if a child has a dragon of self-doubt. I have one with it and one without it, and it's really interesting to watch. So even at 5 years old, I would, every night when you're putting your daughters to bed, I would have you and them discuss your peak and your pit from the day, the highest point and the lowest point. And it'll teach your daughter two things. One, every day is not perfect, and every day has a crappy part of it, and it's okay to talk about the crappy things. And it will also show her that you are not perfect, and that you have crappy parts of your day too. Because as I said earlier, this dragon thrives in silence and avoidance and negativity, and too many of us are raised in households where perfection is expected. Oh, everything's great, it's great, it's great, you know, and then you're like, oh, I'm not happy, and somebody's like, look, there's Elvis, you know, and it's like we avoid, you think you avoid your own problems, your children's problems terrify you. And so start doing that. Your peak and your pit, and it'll be a game changer. All right, I think one more question.
How do you mitigate the guilt of sometimes realizing that your kid is actually spending more time with somebody else, like a caretaker or a nanny, other than you? And worst of all, the worst part, when they ask for them when you're there.
Yeah, you have to, I mean, that is a sign that you have a dragon of self-doubt. If things around you are triggering you that much, a child says something one time, now my kids call me the nanny's name or whatever, and I'm like, I'm a good mom. Like, it's like I'm resistant to it, where before I was like, what did you say? You know, where now I'm like, they made a mistake, they're dumb. Like, I'm not her. But, so you have to heal yourself, and you also have to, so if you have a job that is just draining you so much and keeping you away from your family, then try a different job, maybe. And then, but secondly, if that's okay, I mean, I travel a lot, I do a lot, make the time that you are with them really, really, really count. It is quality over quantity. And, but you have to believe that you're a good mom, because most people are not going to tell you that you are. And you have to believe it. It has to come from you. And when that dragon is gone, those prickly things in life will matter a lot less. And when I was saying earlier, think about the 3 things that are new, you know, in your life. Also think about the battles that you're willing to lose right now, because you can't win everything. And I'll give you a quick example. I have 2 kids, they're in 2 different schools. So my husband and I divide and conquer. He does more at my son's school, I do more at my daughter's school. So when I go to my son's school, my dragon is like triggered, because I don't know the other moms, and I'm like, oh, they think I'm a bad mom. But then I remind myself, I chose to lose that battle. My children are loved, they're in a good place, they have, you know, helpful parents, and if these moms think that I'm a bad mom, they're wrong, because I'm a good mom, and being at his school all the time doesn't make me a good mom. And so that's just, think about, and then I walk through the halls and I'm like, this is what losing looks like. And of course it's uncomfortable when you lose, but you decided to lose, and then you feel less like a loser. Okay. There's another session in here, and it would be rude if I stayed up here any longer. So I'm going to be outside signing books, and I would love to say hello.